Hey folks, you know I take my trail camera intel pretty seriously. It's a huge part of how I build my hunting strategy, and I'm always looking for gear that just flat out works. Stuff I can rely on. Backed by solid people and the best customer support in the business. That's exactly why I run Tacticam Reveal cell cameras. Whether you're just getting started or you're a full-blown data junkie like me, they've got a camera to fit your budget and your hunting style. My go-to currently is the Reveal 3.0 series with fully integrated GPS. These things are dead simple to set up. Less fiddling, more scouting and hunting. And they run on most major service providers and will automatically connect you to the strongest signal in your area. So no more hiking to the top of a ridge just to realize you've got the wrong service provider. Been there, not fun. Here's the kicker. You don't even need an SD card. That means fewer trips in, less pressure on your spots, and more real-time intel sent straight to your phone. And if you pair it with a Reveal solar panel or a lithium cartridge, you can keep those cameras running longer and spend more time doing what actually matters. Scouting new ground, dialing in a setup, or maybe, just maybe, finally cleaning the garage like you told your wife you would before the season started. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Tacticam Reveal at tacticam.com. Tacticam. Everything you need to take your hunting to the next level. Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Oscio gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Oscio's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Oscio. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. If you're like me, e-scouting isn't just part of the process, it is the process. And nobody's doing it better than Spartan Forge. This is a veteran-owned company that built the only science-based scouting platform on real GPS collar data and artificial intelligence to predict deer movement. But where it really shines is with their imagery. Spartan Forge now has a high-res UAV coverage for 80% of the whitetail states, down to 5-centimeter detail. That means you can see trails, old logging roads, cuts, even subtle vegetation changes that most apps completely miss. And if you really want to get nerdy, their LiDAR layer breaks right through the canopy so you can see the forest floor. Gives you some visibility to those hidden draws, ditches that big bucks absolutely love to live in. Add in historical wind data and a desktop-only features like Eagle Eye and Cyber Scout, and you've got the most advanced hunting app out there. Start your risk-free 14-day trial today at spartanforge.ai. Welcome to the Truth from Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Tacticam Reveal Cellular Cameras. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 457. Today I'm joined by my buddy Bill Thompson, and we discuss having a system of questions to elevate your game. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. And if you're in the timber or if you've been out on those early season hunts, hopefully you're feeling some tags. Some buddies of mine have been seeing some velvet deer hitting the ground, which is exciting. I'm always just a little bit jealous of the folks that get to go chase some velvet. Especially, I would love to go to North Dakota at some point. I think that's going to have to be in the cards. Have a couple buddies that head out there every year. They absolutely love it. They get on really good deer. I got sent a couple videos, spotting scope videos from a buddy of mine. And he killed a really good one. And he was kind of helping another buddy of ours locate one that they had found earlier, I guess, in the trip. I think they were there for 5 days. And they got on just a hammer of an 8-point. I don't even want to venture to guess like how big he was, but it was probably one of the bigger 8-points I've ever seen, and they were making a play on him. I checked in to see how they did, but I don't think they ended up getting that deer on the ground. They had to leave. I think that was the last day of their hunt. But it looked like awesome hunting, and it's a place I'd really like to go check out. So maybe that might be in the cards next year. And then last night, got a text message. I was traveling home, was actually out in Pittsburgh this past weekend. I'm taking my daughter to visit University of Pittsburgh, and then checked out the Pitt football game while we were there. And while I was sitting in the stadium, it was right around halftime, my buddy Wilson, who you guys know, lives in Idaho. They got on a bunch of elk. Our buddy Jake, I've had him on in the past from archery shop out in North Idaho. And he killed a really good 5x5, and then Wilson was on a really big kind of, I think he said a 6x7, which is really big for that part of Idaho. So they got one bull on the ground. Said they were covered up in bulls. I guess Saturday morning, and they got that first bull in the ground pretty early in the day. And then we'll have a podcast here in the not so distant future with my buddy Chad. He and I, of course, are doing trying to do one a month to kind of catch up. He's in Idaho as well. Sent me a picture of his arrows sticking in a tree, so he didn't have quite the same good fortune that our buddy Wilson had. But he's got some more time out there to try to get it done. But with that, we're just going to go ahead and jump into today's show. Have a cool show for you guys today. Have my buddy Bill Thompson on. Bill, of course, is the CEO, founder, spearhead of all things Spartan Forge. I always like to have him on and just kind of chop it up. He always has a unique perspective on things. And the thing is, a lot of times we get the opportunity, just like in this show, to talk about things that are maybe hunting adjacent, if you will. Beyond his military career and what he's done in Spartan Forge and stuff, he's just a thinker. And I like to talk to people like that because they just have different approaches to things. And one of the things we talked a lot about was systems of questions. And I think a lot of times whenever whether you're kind of jumping into a new endeavor or whether you're trying to get better at an endeavor, maybe you hit a roadblock, you kind of hit a point where your skills and your current knowledge maybe have taken you so far, and maybe you do pretty well or maybe you don't. And then you kind of have to rethink how you kind of approach things, right? Or when you get stuck, maybe you don't have the answer right away. And so we talk a lot about having, a system of kind of questions that, a question begets a question begets a question. And eventually you kind of get to an answer. And I think he got heady, and I think he referred to the Socratic, method, is what it is, this philosophical approach to questions. But it really applies to everything. We talk about it for hunting, of course. We talked about it a little bit in jiu-jitsu because Bill has practiced in the past. And it's very applicable to things where you're just trying to advance yourself. And it obviously applies very well to what he's done in his career in the military with intelligence and stuff like that, because it's a lot of questions. And then when you put together packages, I'm sure he had people asking him a lot of questions about the quality of his intelligence and the package that was put together and so forth. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's show. As always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I got my good buddy, you know him, you love him, Mr. Bill by God Thompson from the Spartan Forge. What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. We almost did a whole jiu-jitsu podcast before we even started recording. Maybe that's in the works.
Yeah. I definitely can nerd out on that type of stuff. I'm not anywhere. I just want to start flat out by saying I'm not any good at any of it. I have an appreciation for it. And I know what it feels like to be choked and to feel the suck.
Yeah.
So, that's about where my interest in it lies.
Right.
It's fun and it's a tough problem. And I think it's a good thing more men should be doing. So, yeah.
Well, that's the most important part is the suck, right? And in that suck, right, there's a lot of parallels to hunting, at least I find, right? Because a lot of hunting, at least, for us mere mortals, is a lot of suck with like very few moments of high,
yeah,
if you will.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's fun. I've talked to people about this where it's like I feel like as I started practicing, like my bow hunting got better, or maybe I don't know if this makes sense, but it's almost like I can like wrap my head around the challenges a little bit better. Right? Does that make sense to you? Because I mean, in your previous life, and well, in your life even today, like you're a dude who likes to tackle challenges, tackle problems, right? Like that's in your DNA, right? So it doesn't surprise me that you've trained in the past and you have an appreciation for that. And also not surprising beyond like loving the culture of deer hunting that you also like to bow hunt because there's copious amounts of challenges in that as well, right? So do you kind of see the parallel like between those two things, the sport and then the hunting kind of aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things I see as a parallel between the two is they both require you to adopt some type of system, and even if it's not the best system, to stick with it and
Mm-hmm.
to kind of see it through.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, have a system, if you just go in and say, well, I'll wait till the situation presents itself and then I'll react. Very few people. There are people. Our buddy Johnny Stewart's one of them.
Yeah.
And I think the guy we were just talking about before, Gordon Ryan on the jiu-jitsu side, is probably one of them too. but I also know that he has a system, talking to him about this. And so, picking a path of discipline and not abandoning it, like, model someone who really knows what they're doing in the sport. If you don't, in either sport, and if you don't have a system, adopt that system, and then be a learner along the way. And humility is huge in both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter how good you are at either, there's always somebody who's way better that you can have a ton to learn from. And those people end up being the best students of both disciplines are the people that realize, Socrates was famous in Greece for saying he was the only person who didn't know a thing.
Mm.
And then, he was, probably one of the most knowledgeable people that ever lived. And it's because he treated everything as a system of questions, the Socratic method, to understand things, to gain and to issue understanding. And so, yeah, being a rigorous student, applying a system and learning from your own mistakes, and then more importantly, not making the same mistakes twice. It's not only good in those two things, but it's good in life. But the thing that is particular with bow hunting and with something like jiu-jitsu or the military or any high stakes endeavor is you get the negative outcomes right away.
Mm.
Like that feedback, that system of learning, you get the opportunity to learn almost immediately, whether you're not seeing deer or not seeing the deer you want to see, or you're getting choked out constantly, or whatever it is. And that's why it's a good system, because it gives you immediate feedback. So many times in life, you don't get the immediate feedback. So like, you're running a business for instance, and you don't, do your accounting, you don't keep the books up or whatever, but you focus on other things. It will give you the illusion of success for a while until it's catastrophic failure. And then you kind of have to unwind and go back and say, what did I not do in the onset that put me in the position where I am now? So in other words, you can abstract away, or you can get away with not implementing a system and adhering to it meticulously in a lot of endeavors for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then what the problem with that is, it becomes difficult to understand where you went wrong. Then in the military, we call it an after action review, or, watching video, or whatever it could be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what jiu-jitsu and bow hunting gives you is you don't get lucky very often.
No.
Like, you can't stumble into a W that you didn't earn.
Mm-hmm.
You very rarely you can in bow hunting. Like, you'll hear the stories where a guy's just like, I selected a weird spot because I was late from work and my wife was yelling at me, so I just wanted to run in for 15 minutes. Then all of a sudden I killed a huge buck. There are reasons for that, right? Because you've been focusing in the wrong areas and you've driven that animal somewhere else. And it just happened to be the only spot that you would normally never sit. And that's what the animal knew about you. So you definitely want to do your AAR there and understand why success came from it. But it almost never happens in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It almost and so that, I think that's the most important thing is that the feedback system on whether or not you've adapted a good path of discipline is very immediate.
Yeah. Man, I love that system of questions. That's such a good kind of like good quote.
Yeah.
Because it's applicable in so much, like in just in day-to-day life. It's a good way to kind of look at things, especially if you're a person who wants to get better at things. Because I think the biggest thing, like, I think a lot of times when we think about system of questions, maybe in hunting, like we think of it in terms of like woodsmanship, because a lot of people talk about woodsmanship. Now, Johnny Stewart's big on woodsmanship, right? Like he is, and I agree with you. He is kind of the Gordon Ryan, if you will, of bow hunting. You know what I mean? Like that's a great analogy. But it's really his kind of, his woodsmanship, but it's his system of questions. Like he doesn't take anything at face value, right? And it's always the why behind it. Like, because there's always this debate, right? I was just talking to a guy earlier today. He's big on like a technology side of things. And it'll be a podcast that comes out after this one, but it's the fellow that's done like a bunch of the drone research, right? And a lot of folks might look at that and be like, okay, drones, researching deer, like how do we feel about that? Like anytime there's a technology thing in hunting, like there's always this apprehension around it, right? And I'm always kind of the mind of, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's hunting or something in sport or something in military or whatever, if you create something, there's always an opportunity that nefarious actors could use it for something that we don't want them to use it for, right? That's always an option, right?
That's
But
every
right, that's every tool, exactly. But what I've been kind of trying to more focus on, lately, probably like the past couple of years, especially because trail cameras get a lot every year. I can always tell, like, it's the off season whenever you start seeing the podcasts pop up about how trail cameras are killing hunting.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, people are running out of shit to talk about. We're going to talk about how we don't like trail cameras now. But the way I look at them is that it should be a tool in that part of like your system of questions. Like that should be the thing that's posing questions to you, not giving you answers, right? It should be the thing that's giving you data to ask questions, to then go put boots on the ground and explore and kind of find the answers for yourself to kind of get to the next set of questions. Like there is no final answer, right? I guess that's the point, right? It's only ever a circle of questions that get you closer and closer. And you might have a moment of winning, whether it's a match or whether it's killing the deer that you want to kill, but then you're on to the next one because that's just a snap of the fingers and it's over, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's two things you said there that I think are important. Is that the first thing is there's no answer. And that's why I talked about the Socratic method. I just did that while we were on the podcast, right? Not before.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So the more important in life is not the answers, it's the questions.
Yes.
What are the right questions that I need to be asking? Because that models how you learn and how you ingest information. And the better, I'll take a guy that's got 15 questions over 100 answers, because answers are kind of an endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like graduating from high school or college. It's like, great, now what do I do? I've got an answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's it. You've terminated implementing it, and knowing the right questions to ask after that, I find to be far more important. But also, the second thing that I think that you said is important is, if you're in it for answers, good luck to you.
Yeah.
If you're not in it to just be out in the woods, to enjoy yourself, to detach from bills and responsibilities, and to, focus on a singular thing, a singular pursuit. Again, with bow hunting and with jiu-jitsu, you can get this kind of like flow state where you're just, the world's melted away and there's just this one thing going on. And in that immense amount of, everything's firing, but then everything kind of falls away, and you get this heightened sense of awareness. And I've found that in bow hunting. I've found that in the military. I've found that in business. I've found that in jiu-jitsu. And it's that heightened sense of awareness is kind of like, the world telling you you're in the place that you need to be at the time you need to be there, and you get to focus on the singular task. And it's actually very therapeutic, because there's studies on this, and I cannot remember what the term is right now. I know, like, great thinkers of the past called it Rausch. It's called flow state, hot flow. There are many terms over the years, but you get it in shooting too. But you get to focus on one thing, and what happens is all of the parts of the brain that are concerned with everything else get turned off, and all of the blood gets put into this one part. I can't remember, I think it's the frontal lobe. It's either the frontal lobe turns on or turns off. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. What happens is all of the blood gets pulled into one area, and you get this euphoria. And it's great for learning. It's great for thinking. It's great for sleeping. It's great. It's good for you in every way. But it's not the same for everyone. Not everyone gets there the same way. Some guys go into the woods, they don't really get that. Some guys get on the jiu-jitsu mat, they don't get that. Some guys need to go fire a gun. They need to go read a great book. They need to go listen to an operatic rendition. Like, different people get to their flow states in different ways. And what that kind of drives down to is what's meaningful to you. And then your body will tell you. It's funny because you can't, like being in love, you don't get to pick what's meaningful.
Yes.
It's actually your body and and very deep parts of your consciousness and your history that will tell you what's meaningful. It will tell you what you're built for. It will tell you where you should be looking in life, because it's more often than not that the things that we need most are in the places that we least want to find them. Whether that's getting your face pushed into a mat, or it's on a 12-mile road march to a spot on public, or 6 miles one way, 6 miles back, or it's, in these places where we don't want them. But then when we're there, we get this profound sense of meaning, and that's what we're wired for. is, the 15 dudes chasing a mastodon, the guy that can exert his will in physical combat, whatever that is. There's only a few of them, and you just got to find out what that thing is. And then when you find out what that thing is, now you have meaning. And then what meaning tells you is that it's not the answer, it's not the victory, it's not the deer, it's not the submission, it's the process that it took you to get there is where all of the meaning is.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
But it also allows you to deal with defeat, because defeat ends up being your biggest learning opportunities, and that helps buttress you against the defeat.
Right, and that's where a lot of the questions come from.
Yeah,
right.
That's where the questions come from. Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's man, I love that the things that you want most are in the places where you least want to be. That is such a good kind of way to think about it, because if we could all like that feeling of being, let's just say flow state, right? Is like anyone who's ever been in it, whether it's like you played high school football or whether in whatever kind of capacity it's been, if you've done sports or anything long enough, or whatever your preferred activity is that you're passionate about, you've probably tasted it at one point, even just for like a small moment of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a drug. Like once you get it, like all you want to do is figure out a way to get back there. But it's like one of those things, like I feel like this in hunting, where I feel like I started having more success and having more of the encounters that I wanted to have, the less I stopped pressing. Like when I stopped pressing and started just kind of, I don't want to say I was making decisions willy-nilly, but I stopped trying to associate more meaning to what I was looking at than what was really there. Right. Yeah. Like, and the example that I gave was like, I kind of got that whenever I was out in the plains and I shot that big deer. It was just, I saw the deer. I knew what I needed to do. I made a decision based on the information I had. My buddy was like, who did you call? And I was like, I text one person. I just said I was on a good one. I didn't even ask like for any advice. I didn't want to talk to anybody. So I was like, I don't want to complicate this. Like, it's very simple. See deer, know what he's going to do, and go kill deer. Right. Yeah. That's that simple. Right. And I was like, nothing like 5 bow hunters to complicate something that doesn't need to be complicated. Right. Exactly. So I just removed all of that and just went after it. And it was super freeing. And it was kind of like after that experience, I was in my mind, I just kind of said to myself, I was like, this is how I should do it all the time. Like, this should be it. Like, don't associate I see a big track. That's a big deer. Don't second guess whether it's a big deer or not. Just go, it's a big deer and he's in the area. And then whatever next piece of sign I find, a big rub, it's like, that's his rub because of this. If that's what I believe, then I'm attaching meaning to it, right? It has meaning now. So it's like, it's a way to kind of get yourself in that flow state. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're removing indecision and you're accounting for potential paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
And you're just going with it. And I think that maybe I've said it on your podcast before, but it's worth repeating. All of the best guys that I know in any domain, whether it's any of the things that we just talked about, but especially hunting, they have a ton of confidence in themselves and their decisions, and they roll with it. And if that doesn't happen, then they're just like, it wasn't meant to be today. Mm-hmm. But they don't abandon their system. They don't abandon their gut. They don't abandon what got them there. They're just saying now is not the time it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Johnny, again, is one of those guys. Like, he's always positive. Like, he can have an experience that would break someone else's heart. I've had experiences in bow hunting where, for instance, I used to trad bow shoot. Mm-hmm. I still got some of them hanging up on the wall here. And I had an experience where I, had a 180-inch buck that I missed at 15 or 17 yards, and I haven't picked up a trad bow since then. And I just went back to compound bows because, it's a long story, but the buck bounded off to 40 yards, and I sat there and looked at him for about 15 minutes, and I could have shot him 5 more times with a compound in my hand, but with a trad bow, I had to sit there and take my medicine. I abandoned something that I loved doing for 10 years. And Johnny would just be like, that was amazing. That was amazing. I can't believe that happened. Like, that is so awesome. And it didn't work out for me, but I'm going to be right back in there tomorrow. Yeah. Now, I was a younger man when I did that. Maybe I wouldn't abandon it now like I did back then, because I think it was maybe 26 or 27. But I'm still talking about it today. Johnny would just be like, I did it all right. Like, it all happened. I just messed up with my bow, and I'm going to go and shoot some arrows tonight and get back in there tomorrow and do it all over again. And so, yeah, like, almost an unhealthy amount of confidence in yourself, which is really in the final analysis, as long as it's not misplaced, it's a pretty good thing to have.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. Cause I think that people underestimate confidence in anything. I was literally just having this chat with my coach just for like a juxtaposition, right? I rolled with him. He's a 5th degree black belt, like kills me. He's like 230 pounds, like 6'3". He's a big guy. And he smashed me whenever, right? And I said to him, we had a really fun round the one day, and he submitted me like 3 times in that round. And I said to him, like the next day, I was like, man, that was probably my favorite round in probably like the last month and a half that I've had, right? And, he's a very good coach. And so his wasn't going to give me any answers. He's just asked me, he's like, why do you think that is? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I feel like, when I roll with you, it's like, there's no expectation of beating you or maybe even winning a position that you don't want to let me win, I was like, so when we roll, I was like, I just kind of go at it with wild abandon. Like I try everything. I throw you the kitchen sink, right? He was like, well, why don't you do that with other people? And I was like, well, I do if I know that like I'm better than somebody or like we're pretty close. I was like, the guys that are like just a little better than me that I'm chasing and measuring myself against, it's like, I don't do that because I'm trying to like, how can I get an inch closer today? And he was like, you need to roll every round like that. He's like, when do you feel your best? I was like, when I just let it rip, you know what I mean? And I don't care about the outcome. I just let it fly and have fun. He's like, that's how you should train all the time.
Really, that's how we should do anything we care about.
Yes. And then we get in our own way because we start to kind of put ourselves in these like little boxes about what we can and can't be, and that's what I wanted to ask you was like, how important, like, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about right now, it's funny because, and I've been thinking a lot about this lately, is how important mindset is in your mental approach to things, just in general, beyond like your skills, capabilities, tactics, whether it's hunting, whether it's shooting, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, like your mindset is going to in part determine how far you're going to be able to go. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think people would probably be able to predict that answer, but maybe not predict the why of the answer.
Yeah, that's what I want. The why. You always have a good why.
Yeah, the why for me is, if I only have so much time, so that tells me I need to first boil down what are the things that are truly important to me right now, because there are 15 other things that I want to be doing. Like I've made no time for elk this year. I want to go elk hunting. I'd love to go elk hunting, but I just do not have the time to go off for 2 weeks and elk hunt this year. There are other things that I want to do. Whitetails is where my heart is at. Like that's what gets me going. And so the first thing is kind of just identifying what these important things are. What are the things, make a list and like, here are my top 3 things where I could put some time in. And then because of my schedule of work, like, I'm involved in 3 different companies. When can I devote time to each one of those things? And in doing that, what I've come up with is any time I spend on those things, not only do I need to have the right things picked, but I need to have the right reasons for being in those things. And so if the right reason can't be to make a $500 million company, the right reason can't be to kill a 230-inch whitetail. The right answer can't be like, you can set lofty expectations. I find it more useful to set expectations that are just right above where I'm at right now, and just try to increment. And even if if you got a pyramid, in the top of the pyramid, let's just use the hyperbole of a 230-inch deer, right? Well, right now you've only killed like some 120s or 110s or whatever. So start thinking about a 140-inch deer and understand what had to change about you or what you had to do to get to that 140. Because that to me, I'm killing every 140 I see until the day I die.
Preach.
So, unless I know that Mr. Big is around the corner or he runs with this other buck, if I see the 140 come out, you can watch. Last year on the Seek One Bill Mageddon video, I'd been chasing this other buck for 3 years. He was literally on the hill. I could see him on the hill behind me, and then like a nice 130 with chocolate antlers walk in. Guess what?
Got him.
Freaking got him. So, but why I'm saying that is, where are the areas that you are orienting yourself towards? What is the good incremental improvement that you can make, and make it make the goal the incremental improvement and not the top of the pyramid, you'll get to the top of the pyramid, but you're going to get there where you have a positive feedback loop that is constantly giving you the serotonin, the dopamine, the positive feedback that you need to keep elevating yourself up there. Because otherwise, if you just say, I'm killing this, I've got 10,000 acres and there's a 230-inch buck up there in this vast New York, public area, you're going to just spend a lot of years not killing that buck, or luck out maybe, but more than likely. Whereas if you're just incrementing yourself towards that goal, like the 230-inch buck could be a $500 million company. Well, let's just make the company worth $6 million this year. Let's make it worth $7 million next year. And then what do I have to do to get there? But then what happens is you get a positive feedback loop where you set goals for yourself. You might have lofty expectations and good, like, high standards, but you're improving every day, and it's that little bit of improvement that's going to keep you on that course. If the only thing you're measuring yourself off of is other people's success in business or in whitetails or in whatever, and you're setting super lofty goals, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. And then what the other narrative that you can drive from that is, the most important thing's not the goal itself, it's the process of attaining the goal.
Yes.
And the process of attaining the goal is where the meaning is found. And that's what puts you in that flow state. That's what puts you in that heightened sense of things. This is where I'm doing what I ought to be doing. And nature and the timing and the animal or the opponent and everything lines up and clicks into place. And then you get that flow state, that heightened sense of awareness. And that's probably what got us off of the veldt in Africa. It's probably what got us, killing mastodons 20,000 years ago, is understanding that it's not necessarily about the end state. And it's so cliche. I know it's cliche, but it's true. And it's more about it's not about the destination, it's the journey. And the better you get at the journey, the closer and reach the destination is.
Yeah. I mean, I think, be curious, do you feel like, I think in general, people are less patient, like, than say maybe they were 30 years ago, right? And I think I'm not saying people are incapable of taking the slow, methodical approach, right? But I think at the end of the day, that always proves out to get you where you want to go. It may not happen in the time frame you want it to happen, but it'll happen. I think some people are so in a rush to get to wherever it is they're going that they miss all the real good stuff, like the in between. If you know what I'm saying, right? Because, like, you might be a new hunter, for example, and you want to get to a point to where you're killing Boone and Crockett deer just as a goal or as an example, right? Or just consistently kill mature deer, whatever the that person's end all be all is, right? I think a lot of times people are so focused on how do I get there that they don't just enjoy the part of being new. Like, there's value in just being new, right? Like, there's some days, you talk to, like, some guys who are, like, really top end, like black belts, and they'll be like, man, you should have a white belt mentality your entire life, like your entire jiu-jitsu career, jiu-jitsu journey, right? It's that, like, constant wanting to learn, lack of ego, always something to improve upon, always searching for, or asking the questions, right? And when you look at some of the best deer hunters that or that I've been able to talk to on this show, I always say, like, the thing that they all have in common across the board, it doesn't matter where they're from, what state they hunt, doesn't matter if they hunt private, doesn't matter if they hunt public, knock on permission, whatever. The overriding kind of quality or trait that they all have is that they are literally in the whitetail woods a white belt forever. Like, that's their mentality, right? And that's why they're able to be consistently really good, is because they have an appreciation for the time that they spent when they weren't, right? And there's something a little bit, like, to romanticize about whenever you could go back to that, right? Because there are some days training, I'm like, man, it'd be great if I could go back in time and, with a different perspective now that I'm a little further removed from it, and have this same mindset and perspective that I have now whenever I wasn't as good, because how much better could I have been, or could I be, if I did all the things I do right now when I first started at anything, whether it's hunting, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's owning a business, whatever the case is. I know it's a little bit of like, Monday morning quarterback, or 2020 vision of, or hindsight's 2020, right? But I think that there is a lesson in that for people who are at those times, at those spaces where it's like, it's okay to be there. Like, it's like, you should really kind of embrace it, because they're only going to get to be that one time.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's a lot that you said there, and everybody's 15 minutes of fame. I think they did a study on this. It took them about 10 years to get there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Most people need about 10,000 hours of time in a domain or a discipline. There are very few outliers where somebody just like, all of a sudden they're top of their game. And usually there's a lot more behind there. If you peel the onion back more, there's usually a lot more going into that. And I think as a consequence of a couple of things, I think, and I'm going to say some cliche things. I say cliche things that are true because that's why they're cliched. It's because they're true and we're observing it. We see it in the world. I think social media has done a lot for young people on making success look like it can be overnight. Like, you'll see ads where it's like, here's how I got 1 million views on my video. Here's how I did this. Here's how I did that. And then simultaneously, people are posting the best moments of their life. And they're not posting like everything that happened beforehand, unless you go on LinkedIn, in which case you might get some of that. But
right.
Like, they're not posting like, here I am eating crap on calls for 10 years. Here I am, endless. I think I pitched Spartan Forge the first year I was trying to get investors. I think I pitched it 70 times before I got my first yes.
Wow.
And the difference between the first pitch deck and the last pitch deck were night and day. Like, I go back and laugh at my first pitch decks because I truly had I make this joke too. Like, if someone had gone back in time and told me what I was going to require of me to get to from where I was in the beginning to now, I might not have done it.
Right.
I might not, like, it took too much confidence in myself. It almost took like a while of banning that we've talked about in order for me to do that. And by no means, I'm not saying we're in the most successful company in the world, but we're closing in on 100,000 users, and I would have never thought where I started Spartan Forge was just going to be ML for deer. Now I haven't spent much ML on deer for a while. It's been about the map and the mapping updates and all the other stuff that kind of gets in the way of doing some of the stuff that I still want to do because I decided to build the map on my own. But the other thing, so the point of all that was, right, like, everybody's 15 minutes of fame takes a lot longer. I think social media has corrupted young minds on what it takes to be a success, and that you're only getting the positives through social media, or you're only getting offered the shortcuts, and there almost are no shortcuts in any of this stuff. And that's a learning thing for young people to understand. But then, the other thing you had said about, being a white belt when you're a black belt, or acting like you know nothing. I'm not trying to like drop names here, but I'll just say it. Like, the guy, so Lee Ellis from Seek One, I've been with him in deer camp now, I don't know, 20 times. When he gets around someone like Bo's dad, Joe Martonic, if you were to just plot me in that room right when they start talking deer, I would think Lee is year one. The questions that he asks, he has almost like a childlike quality when it comes to like questioning. Like, he gets hyped up about deer. Him and Johnny are two guys I can call in February, and after a long season where the last thing you might want to do is talk about deer, we can have a 7-hour conversation on deer. And him and Johnny both have like this childlike quality when it comes to talking about deer. And like I said, listening to Lee, who's got like 5 or 6 200 pluses on the wall. I don't know how many other ones. Like, I've been in his trophy room. It's freaking ridiculous. You want to throw up on yourself. And he knows so much about deer and deer behavior. And when you ask him, it's obvious. He knows a ton. Like last year when, Drew, his partner, and I always make jokes about like, Lee's going to go and do his first mule deer hunt, and a 240-inch mule deer is going to walk out in front of him. And that's just how the world is for Lee.
Right.
And it's funny because, Drew said the same thing when I think it was either high school baseball or something. Lee had never really played. And then, he signs up for the team, and 3 weeks later, he's a starter, and he's got, the world lays itself out for him at his feet. But he also is always asking questions. He's voraciously learning, and he treats every learning opportunity like he's brand new, and like he brings no presuppositions to the table. And so last year, in his first time hunting public, he was using the app and he was running around and selecting some spots. And I think he made a reel from this, but he was on 150 the first night out that we were hunting. And it's just like, oh my God, this guy's like ridiculous. But he is really good at just not making presuppositions, about not assuming things, about learning openly. And when you hear him asking questions, but he could easily walk into that room with Joe and treat him as a peer and say, like, here's what I know. Well, what do you think about this? Or are you sure about that? And instead, it's just, if you were listening to the guy, you would think he's just started deer hunting. So I hope I'm answering your question here, but it's that same thing that we talked about before, that Socratic method, and allowing it to derive itself naturally out of what your genuine interest is. And if you can figure what that genuine interest is out, or anything really, but when you really care about something, that genuine interest, the childlike quality can come out of it naturally, and then you can engage with it naturally, and you won't have to worry about convincing yourself what you have to do. Your whole body and everything around you will be telling you what you have to do, and it will become easier for you as a consequence of you following your natural inclinations. And so I hope I answered your questions, but bottom line, social media has made things look way easier than they are. It's given people in our space the ability to complain about others' success or think that it's easy.
Yeah. I think what it does, in part specific to hunting, is that, and maybe in general, is it robs people, I think, of the awareness of the parts of the journey that are actually going to be the most fruitful for them. Because, like, to your point, all they see, whether it's hunting or anything else, are the people's wins, right? And those are just those moments where you're celebrating, right? But what they don't get to see is actually all the stuff that would actually help somebody, which is the 70 no's you heard, right, prior to getting the first yes, right? Or the 20 deer that you missed or you blew the hunt on, right, until your arrow finally landed, or you got the right opportunity, or whatever the case is, or all the matches you lost, right, in training or in competition before you finally got that first win, right? And all the things that went into that. Like, that's where winners are made, really, regardless of what space it is. Like, it's like winners, are grown in the dark. You only ever see like the spotlight whenever all the work is done, right? That's when it happens, right?
Yeah.
But the convincing yourself why you should do something, I like that idea, like that line that you said, because I feel like a lot of times, especially maybe newer hunters, there are times we have to convince yourself to do something that you don't want to do when you know that it's right. That's different. That's discipline, right? That's like doing stuff when you don't want to do it, but you need to, and you should. But there's another part of this, I think, when you're thinking about hunting, or thinking about things maybe academically or cerebrally, is that, if you need to convince yourself of something, it's probably not the right choice, right? Like, if I have to really convince myself, like, you get these spidey senses, right? Like, we've all been there where we walked into a room and you meet someone for the first time, right? And maybe they're a close friend of a close friend of yours, right? And you really want to like this person because they're best friends with your best friend, right? Or they're one of your best friend's friends, right? But everything in your body is telling you, this dude's an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, and that's an example, like, for hunting as well, right? Like, there's everything in your body is telling you this isn't right. So don't try to convince yourself that it's right. Just recognize it for what it is and move on to the next thing, Yeah. And I think in hunting, we get caught up in a lot of that. That's why I was saying earlier, I started kind of hunting more free. And when I started just making decisions based off of what I had seen versus trying to convince myself of some meaning that wasn't really there, that was whenever things really kind of started taking off. And then when I think about guys like Johnny Stewart or Lee or, any other great hunters that we know, I think that's part of their DNA. They don't spend a lot of time convincing themselves of anything. They just see it for what it is. And they use that childlike quality, which isn't surprising, right? When you're passionate about something, like the kid comes out of you.
Yeah.
That's also the way you learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Watch how kids learn. Like they learn by play, right? And so when you become childlike, that's like, to me, that signals like you're learning. Like that's whenever you're probably closest to getting into that flow state at that moment, if you could possibly ever recognize when that's happening, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think again, like, I apologize to your listeners, and I say this almost every podcast I'm on. On the last subject that we just went through, I could do a 2-hour podcast on it alone. and I try to make my answers as short and concise as possible. But I almost feel like whenever I get on podcasts like this, if I'm giving people short, easy answers, then I'm doing them a disservice.
Right.
Because I'm not giving them the true sense of things. But you're just like how we conceptualize ourselves and how we think about ourselves is almost never true.
Mm-hmm.
B, you should really have someone else, or if you can yourself, it's a great talent, be able to break down your nuances or how you cut corners or the shortcuts that you take or where you apply more effort than you ought to. I journal and write these things down when I see myself do something interesting, either where I cut a corner where I thought I wouldn't, or I went really hard on doing something that I had to get it done. It had to be done right. And now I'm just, putting as much of myself into something. When you can step out and kind of observe those things about yourself, you learn a ton more about the antidote that you need, the truth that you need to reconcile with yourself on where you fall short or where you excel. And then understanding maybe what some of the genesis of those things are, but then also understanding that you're just if you examine the human, the person, and then you talk about the word I, like who I am, this is what I feel, here's what I do. It's usually never right. Usually you're describing what you think you are,
what you want to be, yeah,
or what you want to be, and you're not recognizing the other parts of yourself that are built on whatever it is, a million years of evolution and a million relatives, people who came before you, who made mistakes, made tons of mistakes, or encountered types of people, and that shit's all coded. Excuse me, I'm trying
no,
to.
You're
swear.
good.
That stuff's all coded in you,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get those bad feelings about people. You'll get those bad feelings about situations. You'll get good feelings about people and feelings that are good about situations, and that's you could call it your ancestors, you could call it history, you could call it time interacting with you, trying to give you some lessons, trying to orient you in the right direction, so that you don't repeat the mistakes of the past. And being able to trust your system, trust your gut, and recognize when you're getting after something that's meaningful to you. And again, you can't explain why something's meaningful to you.
Right.
It's like explaining why you're in love with someone or why you like a particular type of food. Like, you don't know that you were drinking a ton of milk one morning because you're short on calcium. All you knew was the milk tasted good.
Right.
But when you step away and you actually why was I crazy for milk that morning? Or why was I disagreeable with my wife the other day? Or why was I what was I doing? Like, one of the things I found that's interesting about myself, to kind of put a bow on this, is I used to play this game when I was a kid called Civilization. And it's a game where you just build like a city, then you build a country, and then the countries go to war. And I would find that in epochs of my life where I was really feeling like I was out of control, or if things weren't going my way, whether it was I was deployed, or I was in a course where I wasn't getting the material, or I was going through a rough patch with a significant other, I always migrate back towards that game. And I didn't realize that until I was journaling. Like, oh shit, I spent 3 hours last night on this stupid game. It was like I was trying to get control somewhere when everything else was out of control. So then you might not ever notice that pattern about yourself, but then when I noticed the pattern, I was like, oh, I need to get off this game and go find control in my life. Then I won't care about the game anymore. What I was trying to do is just get a respite of exercising control over something in a situation where I otherwise felt I had no control.
Right.
And that's kind of comes through self-reflection and that patterning that we're talking about. And that applies in whitetail hunting, that applies in business, that applies in life, that applies on the mat. It applies everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Is try less to examine what you think you ought to be or what you think you are, and actually take account for what you actually are, and that accountability, and then make moves to improve yourself based on how you act in the world and not how you perceive yourself as acting in the world.
Yeah, man. I mean, looking at the person in the mirror is like one of the hardest things to do, right? For anybody. And it's not like, you know, anyone who's listening, it's like, if that's something that you struggle with, it's like, that's not a unique experience, right? Like that's pretty common for people, you know?
I think the saying goes, it's far easier to run a city than to run yourself.
Right. Yeah. 100%, man. I mean, the funny thing is that, you know, journaling is something that I started doing in hunting a few years ago. You know, it's I told you as soon as like Spartan Forge launched, like, you know, several years ago, that was one of my favorite features, was the journaling component of it, you know, because I could just kind of do it as I was hunting, and I could kind of see what I was seeing, you know, what the conditions were, and it pulls all that stuff in, and write a couple notes about decisions I made. Right. And then every year I would kind of go back and reread through them. I still go back to stuff that I wrote 3 years ago, you know, 4 years ago, and reread that for locations, just to see how I've evolved in those places and how I'm making different decisions now. And then I started doing it in jiu-jitsu, where I journal every day after I train, you know, and that was where, so going back to kind of what we talked about at the beginning, like the connections between things for people, because I think you can find solutions of how to manage different things in your life in places that don't seem connected, right?
Yeah, or where you at least want to find them.
Or yeah, and so for me, you know, journaling, you know, on the mats was really, really helpful, because I was having a challenge where it's like, I kind of wanted, as an example, I wanted my game to be a certain way, right? There was certain like approach to the game that I wanted to have, because I really liked this, like a certain style of jiu-jitsu, right? For example. And what I realized was after like a little while, and this is like right before I got my purple belt, was like the game that I really wanted to play wasn't the thing that I was best at. And then if I really wanted to progress in jiu-jitsu, I needed to go all in on the things that is best for like my skill, my age, my body type, like what my capabilities are physically. Because as I'm getting older, like, you know, I'm not as flexible as I once was. I'm pretty flexible still, but not like I used to be. Right. And as soon as I did that, like I took off. Right. And so then I thought about, similarly, I was like, well, how does this apply to the whitetail woods for me? Like, what part of my game in whitetail hunting am I trying to force, but it just doesn't fit me that well? And part of it was, I like being in a tree, but I prefer to be on the ground.
Yeah.
Right. And like, the more I can be on the ground, the more at home I feel, and the more I feel like I'm in the game, and like I feel more confident, and I feel like anything's possible. And going back to what you were saying earlier, which is that I get this childlike, I'm playing a game kind of thing, right? And decisions just start to fire. And lo and behold, I end up in way better positions way more often, right? And all that came from, you know, journaling and writing things down, and having like an epiphany in one area, going like, well, if I'm not the person I think that I am, or I would like to be in this area, what about over here? Am I the person that I want to be over here? And then you can look at your life too and go, you know, and I did this. I'm like, am I spending too much time chasing some of these things and not, you know, being at home often enough, or doing X with my daughter, or whatever the case is, because she's a senior, she's getting ready to leave, fly the coop in a year, right? And so I'm like having all these things, you know, and so it made me kind of take a hard look and go, well, what's really important, you know, and make some changes. And you don't get that, whether it's hunting or anything else, unless you really kind of, at least for me, unless I write it down in black and white and can reread it and look at it, and it becomes very obvious to me.
Yeah. I mean, I just had this conversation with my son this morning, and you said it earlier, and I almost echoed it earlier, but it's twice now it's come up to me, so I'll say it again. Like, our ability, like, you know, you talked about looking back in time and saying, I wish I could have done this differently, or I wish I could have done this or that, or I should have done this here, or whatever. We learn those lessons, and it's really on us as fathers and as the next generation of hunters, as business people, as in the podcasting realm, in jiu-jitsu or whatever, is to help those who are coming after us to avoid the same pitfalls that we had to use blood and time on, right? Because time and blood, you're not getting any more of it. I mean, you'll get more blood, but what I'm saying is, once it's out, it's out. Once you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
Time is our most everything in our world is a function of time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. It doesn't matter. There's an old episode of The Twilight Zone where a guy is a compulsive gambler, and I think he ends up making a deal with the devil, but he doesn't know it's the devil. And basically what happens is he can't lose at gambling.
Mm-hmm.
But in about an hour, it's lost all of its luster.
Right.
Like he just keeps winning. It's like, what do I do with all of this? And to fatherhood and to helping other hunters and people or guys coming, the new white belt or whatever it is it's very difficult with young people today. And this might be our own downfall as guys who are kind of like responsible for this right now. Again, I could do a 2-hour podcast on this. We've kind of lost initiation rights for young men. Like, hey, you're a man now, and here's why, or here's what happened, or this is the chapter. We're in a new chapter of the book now, and now it's time for you. I'm going to treat like a man or a woman, and it's incumbent on you to act like one.
And here's some expectations. Yeah.
And here's the expectations. Here's what comes with it. Here's the positives and the negatives that come with this. But then separately from that is getting them to understand, like, hey, when I'm being hard on you or when I'm trying to tell you to do something, it's because you're likely going down the exact same path that I went down. Here are all the pitfalls associated with that path. And here is what you can do to avoid them. And that's what I was thinking about when you said, like, go back in time. Like, like for me, it's like, I just want to go and teach all my son that stuff, or my daughters. It's like, if I knew what I knew now and could do this all over again, I'm not sure where I would be. Like, it's just the rubric. And I'm not saying I've got life figured out. In fact, what I know is I haven't got life figured out.
That's the most important part.
Yes. And so those lessons that we've just talked about that can be applied to every situation. It's understanding that just focus on process, being a good person, telling the truth when you can, and making everyone around you better at the same time. And if you can do that in any domain that you find yourself in, you'll be quasi-successful just by following that rubric alone.
Yeah.
So when I try telling my son, try telling kids, or as I myself as a man am approaching something that is chaotic to me or that I've never known, it's like, okay, let's quickly take an account of what the situation looks like, how I predict it might unfold, which is almost always incorrect, and how do I avoid the pitfalls that are likely waiting for me out there that I've made in the past that I can now apply here. And that's, when you were talking about that before, that's what really struck out to me, was trying to get my son to understand, like, I can make this life a lot easier for you than even is fair. It almost seems, if my son listened to 30% of what I had to tell him,
it
would be unbelievably dangerous,
right,
and unbelievably capable. And really all you can do with them is try to show them through your own actions. That's all you're getting with kids. It's not until they're like 21 or 22 that they start thinking, oh, maybe this guy's not retarded.
Right.
And start listening to you again.
Yes.
But that is the thing that I really try to focus on, and I fail at it all the time, is how do I make sure my kids don't repeat the same pattern of mistakes that I have spent my life can best be defined by all of the things that I lied about when I was young, that I screwed up about when I was young, that were dumb, short-sighted, thinking about what I want now versus what I should be thinking about, which might be 2 or 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
I could write a whole book. I'm not gonna. Right. I could write a whole book on it, and that's really become important to me, is trying to crack the code on how you can get this into the hands of young ones who have a blank slate, so that they can abstract these things and go forward, and also do that for other I get so many questions on Instagram from whitetail hunters. I bet you it's 3 or 4 a day where they'll send me a screenshot of their property and be like, where should I hunt?
Yeah.
For some reason this year, I don't know crap about turkeys, but I was getting a lot of questions about turkey hunting this year too.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, I can only tell you what was interesting on that map to me.
Right.
But it might not be at all what's going on in the ground. And I might pass them some podcasts that I've been on where people ask me the similar questions, or I might say, hey, like, that inside corner looks good or whatever. But then there's like, you're asking me for the inner workings of a watch, and all I'm going to be able to tell you is the time.
Right. Oh, that's a good analogy
Like
there. Yeah.
there's so much going on. There's so much complexity in that question, and so much more I would need to know to answer it for you in any meaningful way. I can only give you a very surface level description of how I might first start looking at this place. And any advice that I give you won't be great unless we have 3 or 4 days to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And what the good thing is with kids is that you do have 3 or 4 days to sit down. And
Right.
so that's where I've really tried to put myself. But again, I'm probably talking more about my personal life than I should be. But my biggest challenge now is just like, how do I avoid the same pitfalls for my friends who are younger and for my kids who are going through this? And
Right.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think maybe, just using the people that ask you to take a look at a map, or even like with kids, a lot of times, because what we want to do, if someone asks you a question, like what we really want to do is we want to raise their baseline, right? It's like, you're here. Yeah. We want to just help you get a little bit better. So you have a little bit better of a opportunity to have some success or do the things that you want to do, or whatever the case is. Right. But that's hard, right? Because they need to buy in almost hook, line, and sinker of whatever it is, and we giving advice need to be accurate, like and giving them something accurate. And like to your example, right, a map. It's like I can see the map, but that's about all I can tell you, right? It's like I've not walked your property, I don't know anything about it, right? So maybe like we need to think about how do we help them kind of develop their system of questions. Arm them with the questions to start. Like, what are the starter questions, right?
Yeah.
Like a great example is like going back to what we talked about before when I had that round with my coach, and he was like, well, why don't you do this? Like, why do you think this round feels good to you, even though you got beat 3 or submitted 3 times? Like, why don't you do that with other guys? Like, what do you think keeps you from doing that, right? Like, that was a system of questions that like he was forcing me to kind of answer, right? And then through those answers, I realized why, and then that helped me kind of, level up, or at least have a different approach that felt better to me, right? And maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's that we need to instill in them the first 2 or 3 questions, right? Get them excited about the questions, and then let them go. Let them have that wild abandon that we hopefully those questions give them, right? That give them that childlike kind of approach, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, talking to my son about this for about 2 hours this morning. And he's a smart kid, and he asks a lot of big questions, but he's also lazy when it comes to like, he again has gotten this like diet of, here's what I did to grow my Instagram account, or here's what I did. Like he talked to me about wanting to start a podcast on some really heavy stuff, other stuff like, religion and stuff. And he said, how long do you think it'll take me to get 1,000 subscribers? And I was like, if you're doing the podcast for subscribers, I would advise you not to do a podcast for subscribers.
Yeah.
If you're trying to have I think a more appealing way to go about this would be to record a conversation of you and a friend talking about religion.
Right.
And that might appeal to other kids your age. And the followers, which are only useful in a couple capacities, will happen as a natural outgrowth of you having an engaging conversation with someone that they want to have, or that they wish they could have, or Rogan's greatest thing is he asks the right questions.
Yes.
And he listens to people give the answers, experts, but his thing's not that he's the greatest orator in the world. It's that he's asking the right questions, and that he tends to use the truth as a rubric. And what I told my son this morning was, the irony of life is that the meaning of life is meaning.
Right.
So find out what is meaningful to you. And if you want to record, like talk about that for 10 years before you ever record your first podcast. And don't like the podcast should, I can't ascribe your reasons for starting a podcast, but certainly if I were to, it'd probably be 2 things: to have meaningful conversations with people that share a passion that I have. And then to learn.
Yeah. Right? Dude, that was like, yeah, dude, you nailed it. Like when I started this, I was living I had just moved back to Pennsylvania like 2 years or so prior to starting it. I didn't really have any friends that were hunters. Like all the guys I grew up with, they weren't really hunters or anything like that. And everyone back home I lived, 3 hours away from. So I had no hunting community friends. And I wanted to be better at bow hunting. I wanted to learn more. And I was reading, articles, and I was listening to other podcasts, stuff like that. And my idea was like, man, I wonder if I started a podcast, if I could get some of these people just to talk to me, because I want to just talk to them and see and pick their brain. Right.
Yep.
I was like, they're probably not going to do it if I just try to give them a call. I was like, but maybe if I can help them promote something, that they want to promote, I was like, maybe then they would talk to me, and that was literally how it started. It was like, can I make some friends that are like me? And can I also learn something at the same time? Right. And I was like, even in my day job, I'm always the person in the room willing to ask the stupid question because I don't care what people think about me. I just want to know. Right.
Yep.
And so I was like, I'm sure I have questions that people want to ask that are just afraid to ask them. I was like, so let me be the person that asks for them because, I'll do it, and that was really why I started this. And I think you gave him great counsel. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, you should do something because you want to do it because it's interesting. I wouldn't be doing this for 10 years now if it wasn't something that was just interesting to me to begin with. Right. Like, you can't do something that long, or anything that long if you don't have an interest, right? If there's not like a passion or an interest there, it ends up fizzling away at some point, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But speaking of meaning, man, what's going on with you for this year for hunting season? What's a meaningful hunt on your docket, or what do you when you look at this year, what's the plan? What's getting you excited?
PA always gets me excited.
Yeah.
Getting up to the big wide open woods and getting lost. Always gets me. I've done it I think I'm going on 10 years now
Nice.
of going up to PA and just getting lost for a couple of weeks, 10 days, a couple of weeks or something like that. So I got to fly in my, so PA, well, I mean, I live in Virginia, so I've got some spots in Virginia that I've always got a couple nice bucks around. I've got one from last year that I wanted to kill that, I hope shows up again this year. This guy's a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
I would be out hunting in the middle of some place and my friend would be walking, one of the guy's properties I hunt is a really good dude. And he's always telling me about deer in the area. And one morning I'm hunting this buck who had just been in on the camera where I was at. So I was a little bit off from him. And my friend's walking and sent me a picture of him on a power line 100 yards away, and he's been kicking my butt. So of course I'm trying to get after that guy. And then in PA, it's just, Johnny and I have been running cameras. And I'll go up there, stay at his cabin, have some of the guys out there. And, I love deer camp. I just love, like, the next 7 days is just going to be dick and fart jokes.
Right.
And staying up till 11 and being up at 4 and chasing deer. And then somebody gets one down and we've got Gunnar Enberg, the Hungry Huntsman guy, is always with us. He'll get some stuff grilling and then he'd tell stories and make fun of each other. And just, I really enjoy that aspect. I love deer camp and I love that aspect of deer camp. And so that's another planned one that I do every year. And then I drew Iowa late season this year.
Nice.
So I'll probably do an Iowa late season. I've got a buddy who owns some property out there. So I might do Iowa late season. And then my buddy Drew from Seek One, I believe he's out there right now dropping some cameras in the Midwest. Did I say where?
No.
Okay, maybe I won't say where because it's a crazy place.
Yeah.
He's running some cameras on public right now. I'm going to be driving to North Dakota with Johnny. We've been working on my deer camp, and we're about 90% of the way done. We're going to get out there at the end of the month and try to finish it. I'm going to stop along the way and drop some cameras as well. So I'll probably be doing that hunt. And then every year we do the Domageddon hunt in Georgia, where we put some does down to feed the homeless and get everyone together. So
nice.
Exclusively whitetail focused. Like last year I did elk, I did antelope. The year before that I did elk, I did antelope, I did red deer, I did stags, I did whitetail. I put in for North Dakota for elk and moose, but didn't get drawn on either of those. So it's going to be a whitetail year, but really that's where my heart is. Like, I've loosed arrows on most species of huntable animals, except for like the Africa stuff. And nothing gets me going like an elusive whitetail. I just don't think there's anything. I love hearing elk scream. I love that. I love watching a speed goat. I love watching a turkey. I did turkey last year too. I didn't do any of that this year, but nothing to me comes close to the whitetail. So that's where I'm gonna focus myself. I'm
the same way, man. That's I love chasing elk. I love being out west. But there's this well, for whatever reason, man, it's like I'm a whitetail guy through and through. That's what gets me fired up, so I'm chomping
I'm
at
also a better hunter with whitetail. Like I don't get frustrated when I don't see deer.
Yeah, true.
I know I pretty much know what my method is. It's been good for me. I've got 15, 20 big deer on the ground. Um, I'm generally okay. I'm a C plus whitetail hunter,
Right. Yeah.
and I'm not a C plus elk hunter. I'm not a C plus, but also I get frustrated when I'm not hearing turkeys. I get frustrated when I'm
Yeah.
not seeing elk. I get frustrated when the antelope dodges my arrow. I get mad when I'm whatever. With whitetail, it's just like I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So what's getting you fired up for Spartan Forge, man? What do you guys have coming around the corner? You guys have dropped a couple things here in the not so distant past. The new imagery, dude, is next level, bro. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's like 80% of the whitetail states now are covered in our UAV imagery, whereas, the year before it was maybe 50 or 40,
Mhm.
47 or something like that. So that was a massive update. We added tons of years of historical imagery. Most places now are between, 4 and 15 years of
Mhm.
historical imagery, depending on where you are. We're updating the LiDAR stuff. We're about to do a private and public land update as well. We're really just kind of trying to tighten things down. We do a code freeze in September. So wherever the app is, September 15th is going to be what the app is. Come December 31st, we're doing up some peripheral stuff. We're going to be doing CarPlay, which
Mhm.
really won't touch the mobile app, and a couple of other peripheral updates that don't touch the app itself.
Mhm.
And then just we're having a great season so far this year. I hope it continues throughout the year. We've hired a few new guys. Our entire development team now is in the US, which
Nice.
has been a goal of mine. We're the only company who can say that. I know that to be true.
Nice.
um Nothing, nothing getting built in China,
Right.
nothing getting built in Pakistan or India, or far flung places that really don't give a crap about American law. So, our development, our research team, our marketing team, our customer support team is all in the US.
Nice.
So that's been a goal of mine. We were up to like 80% of our code base was coming from the US last year. And now it's 100%. So I'm proud to say we're the only ones. I don't even know of many apps outside of hunting that can say that. Like almost always now,
Yeah.
people are shifting code overseas, and because it's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
And although I understand that and I get it, and you're always looking at the bottom line, it's kind of like before when we talked about what are the meaningful things to me, and one of the
Mhm.
meaningful things to me is that we run the American experiment in America. And if we live and die by it, I kind of look at it like a really good movie. Um, you can think of a movie that was out like, I don't know, in the 80s or the 90s or something like that, that was maybe unappreciated in its time. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, like the movie Fight Club didn't do well in the theaters.
Right.
Right? Everybody knows that movie now. Kids
Right.
talk about that movie now. Every generation makes memes about it. Everybody knows Fight Club, and it's become a movie that wasn't appreciated in its time, that's now appreciated in its time. If this app goes, under in the next 3 or 4 years or something like that, we've got at least 3 or 4 years left in us. But if it were to happen where in 3 or 4 years the app's not what it is, or it's been moved somewhere else, or it's not mine anymore, or it goes away, or we just fail the whole experiment, I can say that we tried to live and die on our own sword,
Mhm.
and that we did it the way that we thought was the most responsible way to do it. And so we're just going to keep doing that. We've got some peripheral stuff that CarPlay, some other mapping updates. We're doing some cool stuff with the LiDAR. Um, we have some camera integration stuff that we're probably going to wait till the spring to do. Um, and really just that UAV update was huge, took a
Yeah.
lot of work and a ton of money. And, I'm pretty happy about it. And as we grow more, we're going to add more and more places. Like I keep telling people, like almost all of our profit from last year was sunk back into development. We're a smaller team than we were last year. And myself and my founders are paying ourselves the exact same thing we were paying ourselves on day one.
Mhm.
And so when people buy the app, it's going right back into building a better app for the hunter, and that's really what we're all about.
Nice, man. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I was stoked. The image update includes my includes an area that I like to hunt that was very illuminating, I will say. Like, to say the
The imagery
least.
look good?
Oh, dude, yeah. I was actually looking at it before we hopped on here. It's like there's I mean, I've walked up like most of it. It's a big place, so I haven't walked, all of it. But the area that I've focused on, I've spent a lot of time in it and chased a really big deer there, a really big deer last year, and was I'm not going to say too much because I don't want people to figure out, but there was a couple things whenever I started looking at the new imagery where I was like, oh man, I was like, it makes sense. I was like, a lot of things made sense. Just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, between that and LiDAR, you can really figure out the places that you need to go and look at. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's
that and
never-
like the slope angle too, for me, and like changing just like the 3D elevation change in looking at it, using the slope angle, not just to see like how steep something may or may not be, or like where I want to access or whatever. It's actually defining what the most plausible travel routes are going to be, right?
Yeah.
Based on difficulty, right? Because deer also don't want to, they want the path of least resistance as well, within reason, right? And so using that and kind of shading things like to a degree, it's like I can look at it and say, they're more likely to take this route than this route, so long as this is passable via vegetation, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then going back to what we were talking about before, it's the system of questions. So then I got to go put boots on the ground and take a look at it and say, based on this, does what I understand from imaging match up with what I see on the ground? But the nice thing is with the new imagery, there's not a lot of guesswork. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Good. So
Well, I'm glad. That's awesome. Because I mean, that really, at the end of the day, for me, is when I get pictures from someone who is like, this buck's been eluding me, or this, I downloaded the app and this helped out. If I'm 5% of those stories, those are really the things that I hang my hat on.
Yeah.
And love knowing that I'm participating in moving this culture forward and doing it for people that have a love for it as much as I do.
Yeah.
Creating those memories it sounds, again, cliche or whatever you want to call it, but man, when I started getting those pictures, I think I got my first one like 2 days ago from a guy out in North Dakota who killed an absolute tank. And I'll send you a picture when we get off the podcast. Absolute tank. And he's like, dude, this deer was using a path I didn't even know was there, like south. Like, he thought the whole area was swamp. So he had the swamp surrounded. And it turns out there was just one walking like area that you could see on the LiDAR. And he put a camera there, and they were going out to an egg field, and he had to get like into waders up to his chest to get to the spot. And he hung a set and went back there on opening day. Sure enough, all of those deer were using that like one like little high ground in the middle of the swamp. Excuse me. So when I get those pictures, man, that jazzes me up.
Yeah, dude.
I absolutely love it. Like, that's what we're doing it for. And so that, or when kids are getting into hunting and stuff like that, like, I love participating in that stuff. So
Awesome.
that's really what we're all about.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, buddy. Before I let you run out of here, though, let people know where they can follow along with Spartan Forge and find out, when you guys have new updates going on, or, whatever information you guys have coming out during the course of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Spartan.Forge on Instagram and Facebook. And I also have my own personal at Bill Thompson SFT, I think it is, or maybe it's at SFT Bill Thompson. Any questions that they ask, gripes, comments, praises, whatever they have about the app, I answer those every morning. Like, you're dealing with me still. And I spend about 2 hours a morning doing that, sometimes 3. It's really important to me as the CEO that I'm getting the pulse from users. And, by and large, has been overwhelmingly positive, whereas I can't say that in the past. Like, obviously, we put out an app that wasn't exactly what we wanted to be because we had market differentiators that we felt like other apps weren't putting out. But now we're finally starting to get to the point where people can just rely on us singularly. They don't have to pay for 1 or 2 app subscriptions. And it's been very positive. And we're having a banner year. And I expect that to keep going, hopefully, all things equal. And I hope to see some people out in the whitetail woods.
Awesome, buddy. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. I look forward to your success this year, and keep me posted on those on that Pennsylvania hunt and what you got going on out in the undisclosed location.
Yeah. Thanks, Clint.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tacticam, Osseo Gear, Hawk Optics, Face Off E-Bikes, and Lathrop & Sons Boot Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.